Bienvenidos este domingo a su programa Detrás del Cine. Mi nombre es Wendy Alvarado. Comenzamos.
We always thought alien life would come from the stars, but it came from deep beneath the sea, a portal between dimensions in the Pacific Ocean. Something out there had discovered us. They counted on the humans to hide, to give up, to fail.
Initiating launch operations. Gypsy danger.
They never considered our ability to stand, to endure, that we would rise to the challenge.
Pilots ready to connect.
Let's go fishing.
2 pilots engaged in neural bridge. Ready to activate the Jaeger in 3, 2, 1.
Today, at the edge of our hope, at the end of our time, we have chosen to believe in each other. Today we face the monsters that are at our door. Today we are canceling the apocalypse.
Como ya vimos en el tráiler, esta semana vamos a hablar de Titanes del Pacífico, y la historia comienza cuando las legiones de criaturas monstruosas, conocidas como kaiju, comienzan a subir desde el mar. Empieza una guerra que acabará con millones de vidas, consumiendo todos los recursos de la humanidad durante años y años. Para luchar contra el kaiju, un tipo especial de arma fue creada: robots masivos llamados Jaegers, que son controlados simultáneamente por 2 pilotos cuyas mentes están conectadas en un puente neural. Pero incluso los Jaegers están resultando indefensos contra los kaiju.
Something like forceps is one of those things that can kill us. It's a very simple day to start the movie. To start with around 10 setups, but I want everybody to be on their toes and doing the best they can. Charlie goes by, she turns. Sounds good, arm to the right.
Guillermo is in a class of his own in his ability to bring like a fully dimensional world together that you really can believe in.
He's passionate about this subject matter, and yet at the same time, with his absolute genius eye, he's really the only choice for us.
He puts so much attention to the detail and cares so much about how it looks, from the costume design to the lighting to the props, everything. You can't help but sort of drink the Kool-Aid and get invested in it too.
We started working the visual Bible, developing the screenplay. The more we worked in it, I knew that I wanted to love it, enjoy every second of it, and give it everything I could. You're trying to brace yourself, going to shake, and then you say, let's finish this, and you go both start working.
If he directs a monster movie, it's not just monster movie, but something more. Stop!
I'm here, brother Billy.
Stop!
Great. To make a movie about scale, both in the sense of the adventure and in the scale in the sense of the images that we were going to do, I was hoping we could do things that had never been shown quite this way on film before.
All master filmmakers are obsessed with their visions, and Guillermo is especially so.
And it has to do with how incredibly prepared he is as a storyteller.
The style of this film is very much like a comic book, you know, like where everyone's larger than life. The day we face the monsters at our door and bring the fight to them!
I wanted the movie to feel very graphic, more like an illustration. And I wanted to give you very saturated colors in the city through the fluorescent neon lights, water, snowstorms, really romantic almost, really beautiful and epic. This movie has its own beautiful, crazy, aesthetic universe.
Ranger is 6 minutes to neural bridge calibration.
And I wanted it to feel really like an adventure movie.
We have 2 signatures, both category 4s.
So we started making it more like the frontier language. We started talking about riding a Jaeger jockey, ranger. The idea that this was the Alamo, a final stand against these creatures.
You have a real story with interesting characters that you're going to follow that's punctuated once in a while with these giant, spectacular set pieces of robots fighting monsters.
But it's all about the impact.
His passion and his expertise allows us all to sort of sit back and feel confident in what we're doing.
I'm so impressed at how Guillermo has managed to create this world in a way that, you know, you believe.
He's a true artist.
I think he's a 1 in a billion. I really do. I would do anything that man asked me to do.
Honorable men in this business are hard to find, you know, and Guillermo has it in spades.
What we went for was a movie more epic and more stylized in a way that is conducive to the story, not just eye candy, but eye protein.
Al poco tiempo de haber sido implementados, los Jaegers demuestran tener éxito. Se retoma la confianza, la humanidad se siente segura, comercializan los kaijus y Jaegers como juguetes, historietas, películas sobre el tema, etc. Los pilotos se transforman en héroes y a pesar de que las máquinas están resultando efectivas, las bestias se vuelven más frecuentes y más fuertes.
When I watched a monster movie, the big money shot for me was the monster. And in Japanese kaiju films, that's what it was about. Kaiju.
The word kaiju means monster in Japanese.
The kaiju is a classic Japanese genre. Giant beasts and monsters that have all kinds of different characteristics and shapes and sizes.
The kaijus in Japan have many, many forms. What I love about the Japanese imagination of the kaiju and the monsters in general is that it's not bridled by biology as much as Western imagination. The kaiju can be very outlandish. They are almost ornamental.
Giving dimension to and relatability to the kaiju, as strange as that may sound, that is a particular gift of Guillermo's. It's also a specific goal of Guillermo's.
The pageantry aspect of the kaiju films was so great. It was about seeing the monster destroy the greatest maquettes. So everything was fetishistic for me. I wanted the tanks, I wanted the buildings for my toys. Everything was a toy. The monster was a toy, the tanks were a toy, the planes were a toy. So it was like a universe of toys and monsters, which for a kid is irresistible. There's something very pure and very full of love in monster movies, even more so in kaiju movies. you just love the creatures. And giant robots has a cherry on top. In Western cinema, there is not a great tradition of mecha. You can see beautiful robots in movies like Westworld or Terminator, AI, but there is no tradition really in Western live action about robots that are 250 foot high.
The term Jaeger is German for hunter. It's one of the nicknames for these mechs.
Well, Jaeger flows from Japanese mecha culture, and it is basically a titanic robot that is in the style of that Japanese pop culture.
Mecha in anime is gorgeous. It's about fluid shapes. It's really beautiful.
Mecha is obviously something that hasn't been done a lot for mainstream audiences, so we needed to top what had gone before, and we needed to get bigger and badder.
I was very influenced by anime, mainly the anime of my youth. Tetsujin 28, which is an anime that is really beautiful. And the live action series from Japan, Space Giant, which was a series that was very important for me as a kid. There were these robots that would transform into rockets. All this tradition that in Japan is an honor. There are designers that only specialize in doing mecha. I really think that people that like monster movies, mecha movies, those movies are tapping to a place that is really, really intimate in you and is really, really pure in you. And it's part of the essence of who you are. All these things is a fascination that is really part of being a kid.
Al borde de la derrota, las fuerzas de defensa de la humanidad no tienen más remedio que recurrir a dos improbables héroes, un ex piloto y un aprendiz que se unieron para conducir un Jaeger legendario, pero aparentemente obsoleto del pasado. En conjunto, se erigen como la última esperanza de la humanidad ante esta terrible amenaza.
Initiating no action!
One of the very original ideas that have grown from this movie is the way the two pilots and the Jaegers interact is through what we've come to call the drift.
You need two human beings to run a Jaeger by connecting neurally. It's quite advanced technology.
Okay, Gypsy, lining up nicely.
Every memory, good, bad, everything, they become one.
They're completely immersed in the heads-up display.
One of the first things I pitched to Legendary, let's make it two pilots.
That's why I was thinking you might vertically stack them.
I would never do that because then you're gaining logic when you're losing drama. I think the fact that these guys are going to be able to see each other, they're going to be able to, you need that. You don't want intercom. I really literally want the representation of they're both in the head.
Within this headspace, there are no secrets, nothing's hidden. It's an extraordinarily intimate experience.
So again, to reiterate, Ringo's coming out of the drift into the spasm into calibration.
Yes.
Okay.
Travis wanted a sort of a magical, ethereal space where the pilots would look at each other outside the compound, sort of a ghost, a place where they look at each other in spirit. But I cannot dedicate days to shoot these guys translucent and all this stuff. So I said, let them blend through memories.
Roll camera, please.
We art directed the drift to be black and white from the moment we shot it. So the actors had duplicates of their clothes in black and white, sort of a blue grays, very cold. Then I came up with the idea of using lighting strikes.
Even before she unwraps it.
To bleach the skin, to make it look blue.
I did her completely in black and grayscale, so that she would almost become a background part of the memory.
What we did is shoot a camera going to the left, and then another piece of another memory would go to the left. So the memories would blend. You know, that you would see somebody running in the foreground and a room would be in the background, and we generated an enormous amount of material. When you feel the light is out, you will feel it. You'll wake up.
Muscle, don't get caught in the moment. Muscle!
We need to sometimes do the simplest tricks in the book. You can start with the lifting of the arm. Would be great. Where instead of morphing or doing a CG moment, I do it in camera. I do it like in a theatrical way. For example, when she goes back to her flashback, I do it with sound and the voice fades out. And Navarro and David Lee rigged the lights in the compote to fade out. Ashes start falling. And she starts walking, and you see she's walking on the street, and it's done on camera. Or Raleigh showing up in the flashback. There were talks about making him translucent and come out of the walls. And I said, no, let's just do a great shot with him standing there. And we understand he's in the memory. These simple tricks that are very theatrical actually worked really well. It's a scene that I am really, really proud of.
El nominado al Oscar Guillermo del Toro dirige la épica aventura de ciencia ficción y acción con un guión de Travis Bickle. Thomas Tu, John Yashni y Mary Parent la producen, con Callum Green como productor ejecutivo.
So we're gonna go linear before we start going crazy. I really assembled a group of designers that knew and loved anime.
Guillermo always has a very well-defined overview of the look of his pictures.
The mecha? They would need to be able to carry the robot like a robot.
He's a guy who really appreciates refined, interesting machines, and he has a certain kind of unique take on what machines are really all about.
The only rule I gave to the whole crew is that we should never discuss reference. We would respond only to the design of that particular robot within the universe of Pacific Rim. We really went into a lot of detail into the technical aspects of each robot and each machine. We decided to build them from the inside out. We actually built the way the pistons, the relays, the torque, everything was worked in detail, and then we pulled back and started figuring out the vents, the skin on top of that, until you have the whole robot. The first step on designing the robots was we did like 40, 50 silhouettes of all the robots. And we just looked at the silhouettes and I said, this one's good, this one's good, this one's good. And then we would grab that silhouette and start developing that robot.
Early on, we did talk a great deal about these shapes and what shapes would work best for, say, a Jaeger from China, kind of what accoutrements and aesthetics could be brought into the design.
We patterned a lot of the language of the robots after World War II war machinery. So we have nose art, we have notches, markings of enemies down.
They all wanted to have their own individuality, including the interiors. They're all colored in their appropriate colors, their appropriate graphics, that all sort of indicate their culture.
We color-coded Cherno, like the T-series tanks, and sort of a nuclear reactor on top of that. It looks like a giant-headed robot, but if you look at it carefully, it's actually a smaller robot carrying the reactor like this. We color-coded a Striker Eureka after off-terrain vehicles, sort of semi-camouflage, outback colors. I wanted that robot to be full of bravado and Australian modesty, you know, really forthcoming. color-coded the Chinese robot in gold and crimson because it's a victorious, auspicious Jaeger. He has 2 arms on one side, super quick, so his fighting style is very defined. We color-coded Gypsy like the planes in World War II with very American colors, blue. And we gave it a bomber nose art, a piece on his chest. And we gave it the anatomy of a big cowboy. I wanted the majesty of a tanker, big flat surfaces made of a lot of plating. And in between those things, you see this intricate machine moving. Pistons and levers and gears that are creating the mechanical movement. We revealed that level of design only in certain areas. You could watch the movie several times and you would always catch something new on those Jaegers. They were designed to look like functional machines. That gives a frequency to our robots that you haven't seen in live action in any film. We really wanted to design these mechas to be robots that would make us excited when we were 10 or 12 years old. I didn't want to reference any other work of fiction in the design of the Jaegers. I didn't want them to look like a certain mecha or to look like a certain piece of anime or another movie. I wanted them to be all their own.
Los enormes alienígenas que invadieron la Tierra para conquistarla, al igual que otros planetas, son gigantescos y la mayoría parecidos a las formas de vida del planeta Tierra. Se dividen en un total de 5 categorías, por lo que pertenece cada uno le representa su toxicidad, tamaño, fuerza, velocidad y habilidades especiales.
Yeah, and I think this is a great place for floaters.
Ah, yeah. Bipedal down below.
I think we should stay in the monster.
Okay.
I made it clear to all the designers that I didn't want anyone, including myself, to purposely reference any existing kaiju movie. We never ever wanted to make it an homage or a reference movie. I wanted the movie to be its own thing. I think eventually when we do the final model, we may want to leave this part more blank, more like a dinosaur chest. When I design monsters, I constantly am trying to find a way to be able to look at a monster for 20 minutes or more and have that design constantly transforming. Make it smaller, and that could be that.
Okay, sure.
And this becomes a little bigger forearm. And I like these legs better than these legs. If you can keep constantly shifting profile on a kaiju, then the audience doesn't feel they've already seen it. But there was one kaiju that was very difficult, Otachi. It's a kaiju that encompasses about 3/4 of the Hong Kong battle. And I wanted that kaiju to work in the water, in the land, and in the air. And for that kaiju to feel different every time. We have some outlandish kaiju, but I didn't want them to be so outlandish that you would not think it's a real animal. We wanted to stick to the basic groups of kaijus that would be based on life forms that exist on Earth. So we tried to echo a gorilla, we tried to echo a shark.
The fact that they seem to be based and sourced in nature, there's a reality to them. The features, there's something very natural about them.
I wanted to echo animal powers and animal defense mechanisms. For example, there's a kaiju that spits acid and has a really elaborate sac under its neck. And we came up with the idea that it needed to regurgitate. It was like acid reflux times X. We came up with the idea that some of them would have electrical charges, charging and discharging that electricity like an electric eel. All these things are weapons that you would see on a smaller scale in nature. One of the rules I gave to the kaiju designers is I wanted to think how a man in a suit would fit in there. The kaijus are trying to honor the spirit and the feeling of the classical kaiju. We are keeping them mostly two-legged, not humanoid, but sort of a silhouette that reminds you of those classical ones. Each kaiju has been evolved and tinkered with to be more and more effective at killing machine. So you see the category 3s, the category 4s, and the category 5s. And each of them is not only bigger and badder, but it's also smarter and faster. We wanted to come up with an idea that would make them feel like natural disasters. You know, like you have the scale for tornadoes and a scale for earthquakes. A kaiju is like that. A kaiju is a force of nature. They can be destroying a city, you still love them. The basic enjoyment you get from a kaiju movie is the same that you get into a mega wrestling match. And half the fun is to see the kaiju that emits radiation from its mouth fight the kaiju that is impervious to radiation and can fly, you know? So you see them go at each other, and in this case, kaiju versus Jaeger was the same thing.
Interesante el detrás del cine de Titanes del Pacífico, ¿verdad? Voy a una pausa y enseguida regresamos.